Hello, and you're very welcome back to another episode 26 of Season 5 here of the League of Ireland Women's podcast on Final Whistle with myself, Breifne, Earley, and of course, as always, Aaron Clarke joins me for everything Women's League of Ireland Premier Division, and we have so much to get through this week, and that's before we even talk about the football. Layoffs in the FAI, probably the biggest headline of the day, a round of voluntary redundancy has been sought by the FAI as of their statement this morning. It's created a bit of upheaval within Abbottstown and across the country for all staff affected by that. I believe, should that not create enough of a numbers drop on head count at the FAI, that there might be compulsory redundancies coming down the tracks after that, once the voluntary aspect of things is done. Not positive news, Aaron. We'll also be talking about Athlone Town in the Champions League. They unfortunately saw their Champions League hopes dashed today, 3-1 by Breidablik in where they're playing. They're in FC 20. 20 won their the other semi-final. So we now see Athlone take on former European champions in the men's game, Red Star Belgrade, now known as their Serbian version of the name. Not going to try pronouncing it because I will absolutely butcher it. But they face Red Star on Saturday, I think.
Yes.
I don't have the exact time
12 o'clock Irish time.
And that also in Holland. So plenty for them to look forward to over the next couple of days. A win there would, of course, see them enter the new Europa competition, the second tier of women's competition in Europe, and it'll be a great opportunity for Athlone as well. So many other things to talk about. We're going to be talking about that new report that came out today about the League of Ireland academies and the juxtaposition it creates in terms of funding that we're seeing with the FAI laying off staff on the one day. It's a little bit of a strange environment around Irish football at the moment. We'll be talking about all of that, as well as maybe taking little bit of a look at some of the social media outpourings this week, some of the downsides of the coverage that the league gets. We'll chat about that later on in the show. And finally, before we even get to the football, we of course have to talk about something that just slipped my mind. I can't remember now what it was. We'll come back to it in a minute. I'm distracted by the Man United game at the moment. Not a fan, but when you see Bruno Fernandes's penalty in the penalty shootout sandwich between two strikes from Dara Burns and Jace Cabia, it brings home a whole reality of where the League of Ireland men's is placed, and by association the women's as well, in terms of players who've left the league to go on to do bigger and better things in other countries. It's nice to see those kind of players having that kind of an impact on a level. I think United might get out of jail here. They're one miss up in the penalty shoot, if that makes sense. Grimsby have missed their third penalty. Aaron, back to the League of Ireland, though. Plenty of action. Shells and Athlone did battle at the weekend. Athlone came out of that with a big win that kind of opens the title race, puts them in at the head of the table, puts them in control of what happens. But of course, the two sides do play each other before the end of the season. They face during another couple of weeks, just maybe the tail end of the season. Wexford, they're kind of back in the mix as well, really, with that result, although they'll be disappointed with their defeat to Treaty at the weekend. But Treaty themselves happy. They're only 3 points behind Wexford, 6 games to go in the league. Can they catch them? Is third place possible for either Galway or Treaty? Galway looking a bit brighter after their win. Amanda Smith with a late strike in injury time to give them all 3 points against a Bows team that didn't look like they deserved to get beat, to be honest. So much more to talk about. Aaron, where are we starting? Where do we even go from there?
3 minutes and 50 odd seconds, and I haven't even said a word.
That's what I mean. I haven't been lulling. There's so much happening this week. I think let's start maybe with Athlone today in the Champions League. Let's get that out of the way in terms of that. You watched the game this morning. Your thoughts? Decent performance?
Yeah, I thought they were well in the game. They started very well. Breidablik came back into it towards the latter of the first half, and when Athlone go 1-0 down, you started thinking, okay, it's going to be dead buried. They should probably run away with it. And then they get an equaliser, Maddie Gibson directly from a corner again, and then the second and third goal were sort of with the sucker punches, came within a minute, 90 seconds of each other, and once that happened, there's no real way coming back from Athlone. The biggest thing I took away from it was fitness levels, and sort of towards the end of the game, like we even seen at the weekend when we talk about Athlone Shells, that the way Athlone play football, it's very, very hard to keep it up for 90 minutes because they put so much intensity into their game, and especially early on. And listen, you lose 3-1 in a Champions League game, you're obviously going to be very disappointed. Gone if it had been last year or the year before, that second game, you sort of, do I really want to play that second game? Being out already. But now there's something different at stake. And with the fact that Red Star lost 6-0 to FC20 today, it's probably a game where, if they're not favourites, it's a very close 50-50 game in the next one. And if they win that, get into a playoff for the Europa competition. Like we spoke a couple of weeks ago about Athlone sort of about Ireland needing to be in a 29 to get a second team. If Athlone could win this game on Saturday, it'd be a massive step towards that. And like for me, listen, they weren't outclassed today. They lost to the better team in the end, but I think it was a really good performance from Athlone. I think Colin Fortune and the girls can be really happy with that sort of performance that they did put in, and like it just shows, and when you read that report, sort of the headlines off that report about underage kids, about the amount of time they're training and stuff like that in other sort of European countries, that sort of shows when it comes to where our league is at in terms of the amount of contact sessions that some players would have with coaches and stuff like that. And it's very difficult to come in and compete in the second round. But I don't think Athlone did themselves any disservice today at all.
Yeah, no, it's great to see a good, solid performance against really, really top-notch opposition in this next stage of European qualification. So best of luck to the girls and Colin Fortune and Gordon Brett and the team out in FCA20 in the Netherlands over the next couple of days. Red Star, they're a big club with a big tradition. Of course, as we mentioned at the top of the show, they've won the men's Champions League probably before most people. I'm showing my age now, but I think it was 1990. I could be wrong on that.
Some very interesting results today. Like two of the Scottish teams were beaten today. Both Hibs and Glasgow City were beaten today. Glasgow are beaten 2-0, and Hibs are beaten 2-1 by Fortuna Herring. Like some big results. And I listen, I think when you get to this stage, all you can want to do is put in a performance that you can be proud of. And like I think Athlone were brilliant. But you're right, when you come up against big clubs like that, look at some of the names involved today: Manchester United, PSV, Roma. Yeah, there's some really, really big names in here. Gentry Universités, who've had a massive sort of, how would you say, history with the Champions League. Like even Inter Milan getting beaten today. So Athlone in good company.
Yeah, absolutely. Great company. And I think it really sets it up. There's a very winnable tie on Saturday where to get into the knockout stages of that new Europa League from a money point of view, from a prestige point of view, from an attracting players point of view, that's all super, super important. Maybe let's chat about their game. Let's stay in Athlone for a moment. We'll chat about their game at the weekend. Let's go through the fixtures first. Let's get the football out of the way, and then we'll talk about all the other stuff. So Athlone Shells, top of the table class. Shells went into it on top of the league. A win would have pretty much put one hand on the trophy with so few games left, but it wasn't to be. Athlone hadn't read the script, and they came out all guns blazing. 2 early goals for them kind of set the tone, and that was basically all she wrote. Shells came back. Red card for Gemma Quinn. We'll chat about that. Goal ruled out for offside that we don't necessarily think was offside. It's pretty crystal clear to me anyway that she was onside when the ball was hit. Ball hits the crossbar, probably confused the assistant referee because when the ball changes direction, she's in an offside position. Of course, it doesn't matter. Crossbar doesn't count. But it just a poor decision from the officials on that instance. But overall, they got everything else pretty much right. No red card for Maddie Gibson in the challenge that saw Kiva Keenan get injured, and a red card.
She wasn't even booked in the challenge.
No, it was a 50-50.
Let's start with that. Let's start with that because I'm gonna bring up the social media stuff as well here, because to me it's something that I didn't like, and I text you Sunday about this. And for me, Maddie loses the ball. She goes to try and win it back, catches Kiva. Yes, Kiva's got injured, and it could be a very bad injury. We haven't got the extent of what it is. But there was no malice in it. Maddie never went to try and hurt Kiva or injure Kiva. Look, we've seen even like last year in these sort of games, players get injured. Like the Chloe Singleton injury last year, no Shells player went out to maliciously hurt Chloe in that game, and I don't think any player in the league would do that. And for me, when you sort of read the comments on social media and you're sort of looking at people accusing Matty Gibson of doing it intentionally and that sort of stuff. That's absolutely horrible sort of stuff. And like you can even see the distraught in the Shells players when it happened. You can see like Maddie's sort of a little bit she's a bit hurt herself, but she's a little bit I think she's a little bit shaken at that herself at that moment. Like no player ever goes out to hurt another player. And when I see them sort of things, you got to wonder, like, yes, we want rivalries. Yes, we want fans. Like I sent to you even earlier the Athlone flag, which I thought was woeful. The one with where I won't even describe it, but it's doing the rounds on social media where the Shells and Longford crest are at the bottom. Like that sort of thing I don't like. To go out and accuse a player of intentionally doing something like that, I don't like either. I love the fact of a rivalry where you go into a game and the fans, they want their side to cheer. I don't care if a fan turns around and says, referee got every decision wrong, or don't agree with a referee decision. You're entitled to an opinion. But to go out and say somebody maliciously went to hurt somebody and I went to hurt somebody, to me, that's wrong. That's not, it's not right. And it's the wrong sort of attitude to go in. Like, if we thought someone intentionally went out to maliciously hurt somebody, we'd say it. We'd be honest enough to say, I think that happened. I think that there's no way, anybody who knows Matty Gibson as well, there's no way, like Kiva, even in that situation, if the shoe's on the other foot, I wouldn't even say Kiva's going in there to do the same to hurt her either. It's just that sort of tackle when Kiva plants her foot.
Yeah. I agree with you. And to avoid going out with her on a rant for ages, because we could both be guilty of that, I agree with you 100%. I think it's a footballing challenge. She loses the ball, tries to get the ball back. It's clumsy, it's late, it's not malicious. And I think it's one of these things that just accidents happen, unfortunately. My issue isn't the challenge or anything that happened on the pitch. Well, you see Shells players calling for a red card or calling for a card, which never arrives properly, which I don't like either. But on top of that, then, to see all the stuff on social media, particularly on the official accounts, replies to the League of Ireland Facebook account in particular went nuts. It's since been deleted, but it took a long time for that to come down.
There's a lot of comments still up there. Across different posts, still up there right now as we speak. The problem is you get to a stage that and we see some League of Ireland clubs starting to do it, where they're starting to actually stop people from commenting on social media posts, in particular on Twitter. We're going to get to a stage that you can't have a fan interaction. You can't have and the thing about that is, that's not what women's football is about. That's not how women's football is going to grow. And we need fan engagement. But it's just, I just think sometimes people just need to have a think about before what they post. And, I understand emotions can be high. Likewise, when you see some of the objections to the refereeing decisions in the ground, I understand emotions can be high during the game and that sort of stuff. But people just need to be very careful of what they post. We've seen social media's caused a lot of damage in a negative way over the years gone by, and I just think people just need to be very careful in that situation.
Yeah, just for the record, I know you're super interested, but the United penalty shootout has now gone to the 12th penalty. Jace Cavey has just got his second penalty of the penalty shootout. It's 11-10 to Grimsby at the moment. So if you're a Man United fan, apologies. Moving back to the women's game, yeah, I think in the whole fallout of the social media stuff is not positive. And I think it's going to bring us in the wrong direction in terms of where we should be going in terms of promoting the sport. Let's talk about the actual football, though. 2 goals from Athlone, 1 late on, really just a kind of a, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of a
consolation.
That's the word I'm looking for. My old age is affecting me, Aaron. The consolation goal for Shells at the end. Can they feel aggrieved, though, with the goal that was ruled out for offside?
Oh, 100%. It's 100% onside. And the thing for me that I find it very interesting is how quick the whistle goes. At that situation, with the way the laws are working now, he puts the ball in the net very quickly. There's no reason why they can't just say, "Are you sure? Are we good?" They're mic'd up at each other, chatting with each other. Are we sure this is offside? It's a big call. It's a massive call. And I've gone back. I've looked at the replay. I know Shells had looked at the replay back at the weekend from different angles, and they were incensed after the full-time whistle about it. And I do think he's got the red card decision right. I do 100% think he's got the red card decision right. But for me, I don't think that's an offside. It's an offside, and it's had a massive impact. But then again, I'm going to flip that before we even talk about the red card. Shell should never have found themselves in that position in the first place. I thought the forward to back, I understand why he done it, especially with the bodies and the numbers that they have at the minute. I understand why he made the change, but they just literally showed Athlone way too much respect in the first half. And Roisin Malloy just had another Roisin Malloy moment where she was just instrumental in everything good that happened. Like the first goal for me, I think it should be cleared before it gets to Natalie McNally. Like even Kelly Brady trying the speculative flick over the head, and it goes then towards Izzy Groves before going to McNally, but it should be clear. But then the second goal, and I haven't said a bad word about Leah Doyle all season. I've been praising her multiple times. I think she's been brilliant for Shells, but just put that ball into touch or just kick it somewhere. She tried to be cute and clever and sort of wait for the ball to run over the line for a goal kick, but Roisin Malloy said no, and when she nicked the ball off her, like when Brady strikes and it comes off Pearl Slattery, it's gonna go anywhere at that stage. And like for me, I thought Athlone probably could have been further ahead of halftime. Shells then made the change to go back to the trade at the back with the wing backs, and they looked so much more assured in the second half. I think you can definitely see Shell's fitness levels later on in particular were a bit stronger for me than Athlone, and like Athlone ended up hanging on at the end. And if that goal from Noel Murray comes maybe 10 minutes earlier, it would have been very interesting.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think Shell's pressure later on really impressed me for a team. Yeah, okay, they've been thereabouts for the last 10 years, but for a team that were kind of needed to win that game or not lose that game to keep their title hopes alive, I thought they had a really, really good showing. The red card, let's talk about that for a moment. I think in the same respect as the challenge on Kiva Keenan, I think the ref got it right. I don't think there was any malice in this one either. Looking at the replays, Gemma clearly has her eyes on the ball until the very last second, at which point her foot's already making contact with Kate's head. So Kate Slevin just appears out of.
By the way, just to really rub it in, just because you've done this a minute ago, Grimsby actually beat United up enough.
Five penalties out of the 12 came from League of Ireland, former League of Ireland players. 2 from Darragh Burns, 2 from from Jace Cabia, and 1 then in the middle of the whole lot from Cameron McJanet, formerly Derry City. So
going back to this incident, what can Gemma do differently? I'm not sure.
Very little.
But the problem is when the foot is up that high, if you catch a player, you're going to get a red card. And there was no intent at all. Like to me,
I think she could probably scan a bit better. As in, like she has a bit of time. Ball's coming to her. If she takes a look over her shoulder, she realizes that there's a player coming in. She doesn't. She's so focused on the ball, which is a positive. She's so focused on the ball, she doesn't see Kate Slevin coming in from an attack.
I hope she doesn't get a 3-game ban, because there's no malice and no intent in it. It's clearly going to play the ball. I think it's, and I understand why Shells felt aggrieved over it and felt that it wasn't. I get it. I understand it. But to me, I agree with you. Could she have scanned? Could she? It's dangerous. Whether she didn't mean it, no way at all meant it. But it's dangerous, and to me, it's a red card. But I think the biggest, unfortunately, we're gonna keep talking about that offside goal, and that's gonna be the one point where a lot of people will walk away from.
Could that decide the league? That's the question. Because if the game ends in a draw in Talca Park in a couple of weeks' time, and they win all the other games, or they maintain the same record, it could come down to that decision, which is absolutely nuts.
Breifne. It's funny here, and I said this to Alan Wearing when I was speaking to him after the game. I said, there's only a point in it. I said, that's the thing where Shells fans need to realise it's not doom and gloom. Yes, they didn't get the result, but if you looked at Shells' last 3 games now with this fixture change.
Yeah. Oh, it's nuts. It's absolutely nuts.
Wexford and Shamrock Rovers. Like, the only I will say on a Shells viewpoint is, apart from the trip to Shamrock Rovers on the last day of the season, they've Galway away, which is their last big travel. Everything else is at home. So of them 7 games, 5 of them are home because they reversed the fixture with DLR Waves. You know what? I've been critical of some things the FAI have done in terms of fixture handling, and I was going to sort of have a rant over fixture handling over the under-19s final, but it's sort of being changed now. But the one thing I will say here is the FAI's decision. I don't agree with the decision to play the League of Ireland games the same time as the Cup semi-finals on the 13th. I would have liked to see them games being played earlier in the day before the Cup semi-finals are on, but to actually move that DLR Waves game to then and put the Shells Athlone game on that Saturday, instead of being a midweek game. It's actually very, very clever. It's a very, very clever move because there's no doubt TG Carr wants it. They want that game. It's a massive, massive game. You put it into a nice little primetime spot 3 weeks to go, towards the end of the season. I think it's a really, really good fit for where it's actually slotted into the fixtures. And like the one thing I will say is Shelbourne need to get their act together in the sense of off the field for this game. Shelbourne need to get at least 1,500 fans to 2,000 fans in there. They need to make that a hostile atmosphere. They need to make it a massive roar. Have the Shell faithful in behind them, because if they can do that and sort of really ratchet up the pressure on Athlone, there's no doubt they can get a result in that game. There's absolutely no doubt they can get a result in that game. But that's the sort of thing that Shell's going to need to do. They're going to need a massive crowd in Talca Park and sort of have it that we've seen big moments where the home crowd in the men's games has sort of got them over the line.
Yeah.
I think they're going to need something like that as well in that game for the women, because if they could get a massive crowd there on TV, and the other thing about it is it's not a 7:35 kickoff. That's the other thing. I was expecting when I seen TG Carr that it was going to be a late kickoff. I think it's a 4:35 it's a 4:30 kickoff, so it's only a half an hour later than they would normally kick off.
Yeah, no, it's a really, really good opportunity. It's a nice time of day on a Saturday afternoon for families, for school kids. Like, there's no reason why you can't pack Talca Park with young girls. Let them in, let them watch the game. If you can't see it, you can't be it. This is an opportunity to show them some of the best athletes in the country at the moment in a really, really big game. Let's take a move, though. Let's go to Treaty, because I think Treaty for me was probably the result of the weekend outside of Athlone. Another great performance from them. We've been waiting for them to fall off all year. I think that's fair to say, is that we've been impressed by them. We've been impressed by them. They keep pushing the line of where we expect them to get to. And we've always kind of thought, well, at least I've always thought in the back of my mind, it's going to end somewhere. And then they go out and they beat third place Wexford away. A solid performance. Like, it looks like they realistically are there for the long haul. Can they get third place? I know I asked you kind of sarcastically in the top of the show, but is that a real target for them? Like, 6 points to go, only 3 points behind. Goal difference is a big problem with three teams around them. So they'll need to get there on points. So you're probably looking at a 4-point gap to close. Is that realistic?
Biggest game of their season this weekend. They beat Galway United this weekend in Marketsfield. Yeah, 100% it's realistic. But the thing for me is we're having a conversation about Treaty United. Can they get third? I'm loving this. I'm absolutely loving this. We're having this conversation of can Treaty United get third. I said to you last week I thought they could get something out of the game, but they were full value for the win. Granted, Ella Malloy had some magical spells on the ball, especially late in the second half where she had some chances. But they were full value for that win for me. Katie Lawley with another goal. Like, it's not even a case of am I amazed anymore. It's more of a case of I'm now starting to ask the question to myself: what are they going to do this week?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. That's the question I'm asking myself: what are they going to do this week? What are they going to? And it's not a case of can they get a result. It's when they put that performance in, they've been absolutely superb. Like, you look at this season. Some of the results they've got this year, they've drawn Athlone in the league, beat Athlone in the All Ireland Cup. They've beaten Wexford, beaten Galway. Like, they've got some really, 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 really very good results this year, and like a lot of credit has to go to them. And if you include the FAI Cup, they're 5 games unbeaten with 4 wins, and the only game they haven't won in them 5 games is a 1-1 draw with Athlone.
Yeah, and big news out of the club this week as well, off the pitch, in terms of their advertised for the position of managing director, which is a huge plus to the club. I think in the statement I saw anyway, Kieran McCormick is going to move more towards the football operations of things and let someone to come in to handle the marketing and the management and the corporate side of things in terms of bringing in the resources and the money. I think it's a really positive move in terms of seeing how they're going to go forward with this, because I think any club that gets it right off the pitch, and we'll talk about that when we chat about the academies later, has a much better chance of doing it on the pitch. And you see the teams that are in disarray, and even I know we're facetiously talking about Man United tonight to get knocked out of the cup by Grimsby. Nothing to do with the League of Ireland Women's Premier Division, but I think it's the concept that when a club is in a bit of turmoil off the pitch, you can't expect it to happen on the pitch. And that's why Athlone's success in recent weeks, given all the turmoil that's going on there with terms of backers and funders and investors and new ownership and people leaving the club, it's great to see that they've managed to insulate that group of players from all of that stuff that's happening around them. It's very, very hard to do when stuff, and I'm not saying this is that loan situation, but when stuff like late payments of wages or late payments of expenses or not doing stuff because of money or because someone just isn't there to do it, or resources that you're anticipating like a physio or whatever doesn't show up, again, usually because of money in the League of Ireland over the last decades. And we're not talking about current days, but over decades. And we see Saipan itself is another example. Do it on the cheap, do it on the disorganized scale. It just blows up and teams struggle. So it's really good to see that in Athlone. And I think that's what Treaty have done really well. They've put a stable, at least from the outside, they've put it on a stable environment. They've got the markets feeling nailed down. They're working on a training facility at the moment. Things seem a little bit more stable than they've been in Limerick in decades, really, down there. So that's really, really positive to see. But as for the actual game, we've seen this huge influx of Canadian and American girls coming into Treaty, but it's the local girls who I'm most impressed with in terms of how they've grown into that role of being the local representatives in that side, like your Madison McGrans, your Kate Lawleys, your seen Gillian Keenan going back to the team. Like there's plenty of local interest there as well. It's not just an imported team.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at some of the players coming on that pitch, under 18 kids, more kids. Like Madison McGran didn't even start the game against Wexford. Come on, but they've more youngsters that are getting opportunities. And they're finding that nice blend of experience with the players they brought in and the younger players. Like, and I think that's important for them, because if you look at Treaty United's bench at the weekend, because we've talked about the influx of foreign players into Treaty, they'd 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players started from abroad started the game. The entire bench is kids who've come through the club and players they brought in. Like, you've got your Cara Griffins, your Madison McGrants, Breslin as well. You have players who've come through the club and and that's where the future lies. And just when you're talking about off the field, I didn't say this earlier, but I think we need to give Athlone Town some credit for the fact that they facilitated and they covered the cost of having LOI TV cover that game today in Holland. They've flown over, people to do it and all that sort of stuff, to make sure that the game was covered, to make sure that it was available, and it was available free of charge as well. And I think that's a really important thing for women's football, as you say, about being able to see all that. It's really, really important. And like, the thing about it is women's footballers need good role models.
Yeah,
the more good role models we see within women's football clubs, the more we're going to see growth over the next period of time.
Yeah, let's move to Sligo. Sligo played on Saturday against Shamrock Rovers. The game was delayed, and we'll get into the details behind that. It was pushed back a couple of hours because we found out news just after we came off air, literally as we came off air last week, of the death of one of their players. Sarah Kiernan lost her mum last week after a long battle with cancer. So sorry for her loss. And it's if anyone, I know Sarah from when she was under 17 with Sligo back in the day. Lovely girl. Lost her dad not that long ago as well. So 22, younger, eldest of 3, I think, and both parents passed away. So it's a tough station for her at the moment, and I have been in touch, but she's she's strong. She'll be okay, but it's a really, really tough ask for anyone in their early 20s to go through that. So to ask Sligo Rovers to play 2 or 3 hours after the funeral seems rough, in my opinion. Anything to do with this game has to be taken through that lens as well. Is that these girls?
Any chance of Sligo doing anything in this game?
No,
he went out the window. And you know what? For the players to actually get on the pitch, because a lot of them will be close with Sarah. We see the way women's football is and how much of a it's nearly like a little family in the clubs in itself. So for them players to even get onto the pitch and put in any sort of performance, it was always going to be very difficult. And I think a lot of credit, you got to give a bit of credit to the Sligo management, the players, everybody, for involved in Sligo, because it can't have been an easy week at all to sort of even try and.
I'm astonished. I'm astonished the game went ahead. If I'm honest, but
I would. Now the interesting thing here for me is we've seen sort of this happen a couple of times in the League of Ireland, where there's been a passing away of parents from, like, I can think of two in particular from Shelbourne, where Shells played a couple of days later after. Once they played on the Saturday after. I think 2 or 3 days they played after. Noel Murray's father passed away.
There's a big difference. There's a big difference between 2 or 3 days and 2 or 3 hours, Aaron, is all I'm saying. I just think,
no, I'm not talking about the funeral. I'm talking about in general. But I think it's. I don't necessarily like it. I agree with you. I don't think it really should be and it's not the turnaround and say to punish the away club who are travelling, but it's very difficult to put any set of players or any team through that. And like, it's tough to know what the conversations were had off the field in terms of with the FAI, with Sligo. But heart goes out to Sarah Kieran, and and it's a really, really difficult situation for her at this time. And like football's secondary in that.
Yeah, 100%. Speaking of the football, though, it was a good day for Shamrock Rovers. All that aside, Melissa came with the opener after 10 minutes. It was too easy. I just felt it was too easy at times, just for Rovers. Sligo didn't even get a challenge in, and all of a sudden they're 1-0 down. Great effort from range from Melissa O'Kane. The penalty, it's an absolute stonewall penalty. Like, Anya Gorman gets taken out of the box. Good finish.
I think they're both penalties on both sides.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I agree with that. And then I suppose Emily Corbett, despite getting on the score sheet, she'd be disappointed with the swing and a miss for the fourth one. It ends up at the feet of Audrey Gorman, who tucks it home and saves Emily's blushes. But Emily just didn't make contact with the cross in the middle for the fourth goal. In terms of Sligo's season, the biggest news for me out of the club after the game was the loss of Annie McKinley. Has left the club. She's only there for a couple of weeks. Massive impact when she arrived.
She started the game as well.
Yeah, massive impact when she arrived. But for them to lose her, I think she was the saving grace of their season, and now I think they're going to be in trouble without her.
Well, she scored 2 goals in her first game. She's played what?
She won the penalty.
She's played 6 games. She played 5 games for them. Started all 5 games. Yeah, it's a big loss, and the problem with Sligo is we're at the stage where it's nearly a case of see the season,
So last season we saw, well, we didn't actually even notice at the time, if I'm honest, because Trady were so poor. But Bella Flacchini came in and played a handful of games in her, I suppose, summer break from college, and then came back this year and made a huge impact to the league. I think Annie McKinley has the potential to do that. I hope it's with Sligo, because I think I'd hate to see her come back with another team, but I think she has.
We had this conversation off air the other day, sort of about that exact same sort of thing. To ask the question is, could it be a case, like, just to give people a bit of context, like when Bella Flacchini was here last season, she started 5 games. She started 5 games for Trady, come off the bench in another game, and then all of a sudden she disappeared where I didn't say anything. There was nothing really said out of the club, and then rocks up the start of the season, and poor old Breifne thinks it's a brand new player until we look and see she's played, and then like she's surely has to be in the top 6 players this year in the league.
Oh, I would say top 3 or 4. I can't think of many that are better than her, to be honest. This year, I'd be struggling. Like Roisin Malloy's up there. Madison McGann is probably in that conversation.
Let me ask you this question.
Oh God,
I'm gonna put you on the spot a tiny bit. if you were to pick right now with 7 games to go, sometimes with 6 games to go, if you were to pick if I was to say, okay, I need 5 nominations for Player of the Year right now.
Well, those 3 would be on my list. Oh God, I'd probably have to put. You've really. Five is very difficult. I would say that I could probably give you 7 or 8. I'd say there's a trio from Athlone that I would definitely have in the consideration, and then there's another 3 from Athlone that I could probably say deserve an honourable mention, but I'm cutting it back to 3, and that's Malloy.
Give me your 3
Gibson,
who you think
Malloy,
deserve.
Gibson, and probably Hannah Waish. But Izzy Groves, goalkeeper, is a solid option as well in Athlone. And you can interchange either of the goalkeepers, but the girl who's in possession of the jersey at the moment probably gets the nod. Can't think of her name off the top of my head.
Megan Plaschko.
Yeah, Megan Plaschko, that's one. The Cypriot girl is the other one. In terms of shells, I think Kate Mooney would have been in the reckoning. Her season, of course, got cut short, so maybe she'd be in the running. Other than that, like Alex Kavanagh is always a solid shout for shells. I think they're a different side when she's available. Ella Malloy, Wexford. And then probably the 2 or 3 at Treaty, and more so because of the expectations going in terms of what they've delivered, rather than standout performances, if you know what I mean. Like, but
let me ask this question then to you, right? Well, I'm not going to ask you for nominations then, okay? Is Young Player of the Year harder than Senior Player of the Year this year?
Yeah, Young Player of the Year is crazy. You've got 3 players at Bowes. You've got the 2 Hannahs. You've got Katie McCarran. You've got Emma Cochran. You've got, and then you've Lawley would still probably count as Young Player of the Year. Madison McGuan, Young Player of the Year. There's nobody immediately springs to mind at Shelbourne, but there's a few I know knocking around that could be in the reckoning as well. So tough. But listen, isn't it great that we're sitting here and not able to decide between the best of the best? Like,
you know, I was sat in the press box for the FAI Cup quarter-final with Daryl Garrity, who does stuff for RTE, the 42 and other places, and he turned around to me and said to me, "What's your team of the year?" And we're just chatting about it, and I was like,
I had this thought myself.
Even now, I'm like, it's so difficult. There's a couple who you're sort of saying, yeah, I'd have you in, but then there's others you're sort of like, and it's so difficult.
There's only 1 or 2 that you go, well, she's nailed on, and then everybody else is like on. You could pick from about 30 players, which is phenomenal. Really, really good. But we're running down.
I'd love to see the FAI do this year.
We haven't even gotten into any of the scandals at all this week. Let's wrap up the football. Galway Bows. Galway struck late. I think the most entertaining thing about this game, and it was a cracker, was the 2 girls in commentary. We've seen Jane Murren.
Do you know what? I think Rola Solo
did well.
Has a little bit of a future if she wants to do a little bit of Rola does a bit of work. Yeah. I actually found that she was trying to sort of maintain. Jane Murren was just losing her mind at times. I thought it was brilliant.
We've seen players. I know Bowes did a couple of seasons ago where they had a couple of players doing. Maybe there were players, maybe they weren't. I don't know, but there was female voices.
That was Emma Clinton and Emma. What's the other one? I can't think of her second name.
Oh, so
Emma Clinton was working with both deals and stuff with both when she was in DCU.
Fair enough. But so there was definitely the girls have been doing it with Treaty. I know Emma Kate Deneen had a couple of injured players with her at various stages. And then the girls in Galway and the girls in Athlone, who I think have been banned since they were that terrible. So those 2 were hilarious for the wrong reasons. But I have to say, I really enjoyed Jane Murren. She did a commentary a couple of weeks ago with the goalkeeper, Jessica Berlin, who's no longer with them, but she was obviously visiting Galway and did the commentary with her. And I thought Rola was excellent. The bits I saw, I thought Rola's contribution was top notch. Yeah, really, really positive. So there's a career there for you if you want Rola.
I have to give it a giggle. I just googled Jessica Berlin just as I was doing stuff, and according to when I Google it says Jessica Berlin is 40 years of age, which someone has gone in and messing with her Wikipedia profile page somewhere, because there's not a hope that Jessica is that up.
Oh, that's not true. Or it's a different Jessica Berlin, maybe.
No, it's St. Galway United.
But let's talk about the actual football at the game for a moment, because I thought Rachel Kelly was outstanding. She made some unbelievable saves, including, of course, Emma Doherty's penalty. Galway made hard work of this, and I thought either team could have won it. Either team probably deserved to have a crack at it. They both showed up for what was an absolute classic game, but Galway missed so many chances, and they made really, really hard work of their challenge for this game.
I can't believe you haven't mentioned Hannah Healy's pass for
It's
Hannah
on my
O'Brien's
notes.
goal.
It's on my notes.
Oh my God.
exact quote was, how good was Hannah O'Brien's goal? Hannah Healy with a fabulous ball to find her. But
the ball was just that dead way. It was just literally straight to her, and her pacers got her through, and it was a superb finish. At that stage, you're probably thinking, okay, great start for bowls. Galway missed a penalty. Jamie Erickson scoring again. And then as it's going late on, like the problem with, and Alban Heise said this to me last week, like Bowes are at a bit of a short squad. He's gonna have to play a lot of these players. He's sort of he wanted them managing things as well towards the All Ireland Cup final. It's a difficult one for him, and I think Galway at times through the kitchen sink at them, trying to break them down and get that winner. And like the problem might have from a Bowes viewpoint is you can't give Amanda Smith that sort of space in the box. I'm not give her that sort of space, and it was a really good finish, and like I think Galway were value for the win. I think they deserve the win. I think Bowes will be probably disappointed just the way they conceded that the late goal, and if Bowes had left there with a point, I think Alban Heise would have been happy enough. But Alban sort of focused on this week, because if Bowes could win a trophy this week, it'd be unbelievable for the club and be huge.
I think a trophy trumps everything in that respect. I was particularly impressed, though, despite the penalty miss and a couple of other misses throughout the game, with how dangerous Emma Doherty and Keola Bergen looked as a pair up top. They looked like they were on everything. Now, it didn't quite materialize. Neither of them got in the score sheet, but I just felt they were really, really impressive this week.
Old Phil won't like me saying this, but that pairing has been a massive letdown for me this year. I expected so much more from the two of them. They showed on Saturday what they're capable of together. I think Emma Doherty's been brilliant for them. I think Emma Doherty's probably been one of Galway's best players this season, and the fact that she's now got 9 league goals as well, like could she potentially sneak into that reckoning for Golden Boot? She's brought 4 behind, could potentially, but I think from them two, I expected a little bit more this season. But then again, it's hard to put so much pressure on Bergen. A lot's been expected of her because of what she's done at Wexford, moving across to Galway. She's still only 18.
Yeah.
And I think she will have learned so much from this season. Absolutely so much from this season, that I think that partnership is only going to go from strength to strength. And then the other side of it is the lady on commentary isn't in the squads, who also is going to throw a hand up there to say wants to be up top with the likes of Amanda Smith and Rola Olasolo. So I think realistically for Galway, great options going forward. Big win for them. If you ask me a question earlier, can Treaty get third place? I'd say Galway are probably favourites to get third place at the minute.
I think I'd agree with you on that, but it's not beyond the realms of possibility. This weekend, massive game for both clubs. Let's move to DLR Waves. They hosted Waterford at the weekend. It was the Amber Cosgrove show, really. She was involved in everything. 4-2 winners eventually in the end. What do you make of this? It was kind of a bit of... it was everything and nothing all at once, if that makes sense. I wasn't impressed with the standard of defending, but...
From either team.
Yeah, from my... I mean, that on both sides. And I think it was just meh. It was one of those kind of mid-season, mid-table... Not even mid-table, to be fair, but mid-table kind of means nothing kind of games. I struggled to get, even though there was plenty of action, I just struggled to get into it. Yeah,
I get that. I understand that. I think from Waves' viewpoint, obviously the fact of winning the game is, it's what 3 wins in their last 5 league games for them. They've taken a massive turn this season. I think Waterford are sort of like Cork at the minute, and they're in that bit of a free fall. They've had some really, really poor results of late, and like how much learning are they doing at the minute? Probably an awful lot. A lot of players who wouldn't have a lot of experience at this level, like even some of the players they would have brought in who have handfuls of games, like to throw them into a team where you're probably talking to like your Jess Lawlers or the real experienced players, and that sort of team, it's difficult. Yeah, defensively, I thought it was poor. It was poor. I think the first goal, like when it comes across, and it's just an easy finish. And like going forward, I thought the other waves had it too easy going forward. When they're scoring, they're gonna have to do an awful lot to score and to sort of win that game. And like I do want to talk about the two goals they did concede. The first goal for me, um, it's a bit of a howler from the keeper. Unfortunately, and then they're not gonna miss from that situation. Athlone, Waterford aren't gonna miss from that situation. Bradley's not gonna. She's not gonna take a second chance, and then the penalty. There's no need to make the challenge.
Yeah,
I don't think there's any need to make that challenge there. And
yeah.
then at 4-2, probably, and the worst part about this is 4-2 probably makes it look a bit closer for Waterford, when in actual fact, they were in control. And that's the one thing I'd say that probably frustrated Laura Heffernan, is that they were in control of that game. They should have seen that game of 4, if not scored more in that game. And I think they'll be frustrated. I think Maeve Williams will be very disappointed with the last goal from DLR Waves. I think she'll feel she could have done a lot better for that as well. I don't think she was great for it either.
Yeah, no, I think we look back at that game. I don't think there's going to be too many. It'll be shortened in memory if that makes sense. It wasn't a classic by any stretch of the imagination.
I think it's the result that could potentially that will probably solidify that 8th place for Waves, or 9th place, isn't it? 8th.
No, they're only 10th at the
Ninth,
moment. 11th at the moment.
Sorry, 9th place. I think that'll solidify 9th place. Fully expect them to go on and get another result this weekend. I think DLR are probably way above the teams who are around them at the minute.
Well, the results haven't borne that out, to be fair, but I do tend to agree with you. They look to have that little bit of extra quality, and there's a few players there that you feel like. Cosgrove was very impressive at the weekend. I've been really impressed with Michelle Doonan this year as well. A bit worrying to see the goalkeepers on the bench. No disrespect to the two that were named, Niamh Richardson in goals and Pia Madden on the bench. We're so used to seeing Eve Badana in goal and maybe Rugale on the bench. It's
Alice can out this out for the season. She's not going to be there again for the rest. She's in and around Waves, but she's not going to play this season through injury.
Yeah,
so and that's it.
But Badana must obviously have an injury or was unavailable for whatever reason this weekend as well. So didn't miss in terms of the result, but missed in terms of the performance. I don't think at least one, if not two, of those goals don't go in if Badana's in net at the weekend. But you listen, that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. Speaking of Badana, one of her former clubs, Cork, they're in free fall at the moment, as you mentioned, bottom of the table by 3 points. Not helped by a defeat 2-0 to Peamount United at the weekend. Peamount looked like they could have just scored for fun down here. This was a Peamount of old performance in some ways.
Take Uva was brilliant.
Yeah,
I think she's gonna walk away from that game thinking, I should have scored 3 or 4.
Should have had 3. I have a Guivo should have had a hat trick in my notes here. It's
I thought she was brilliant against Bows as well. Absolutely fantastic against Bows. But the fact for Peamount, I think, is that they backed that up with a second league win in a row. I think that's probably the most important, even from a Peamount viewpoint, is off the back of the good performance against Athlone, then beating Bows, going and beating Cork as well. Like, going to Shamrock Rovers this weekend, they're a completely different Peamount United team than we would have been seeing a couple of weeks ago. And like, if they started, they could realistically, if Peamount can go on a run, there's no reason why they couldn't potentially even catch up to the likes of Shamrock Rovers in 6th place. And then you're probably talking finish that second half of the season much better. You know, it's not a bad end to the year. But like we were thinking at one stage, Peamount was going to fall apart, fall away. I think it's been a good response to them in the last couple of weeks. And like, listen, I think they'll be very happy with that result. Eleanor Ryan Doyle's goal was nice.
Well,
for me,
you've tipped on something there. I think the return of Eleanor Ryan Doyle has been huge, and for me, the goal was great finish. Terrible defender from Cork. They didn't get out at all. Once the ball left from the corner, they just stayed on inside the 6-yard box and let Eleanor Ryan Doyle be that close to goal, just that she could tip it home when it came back in. But for me, the best part of it, and I only saw the highlights of this game, but the best part for me was the final whistle highlight, where Cork broke from their box, quick break down the side, and Ryan Doyle in particular, 4 or 5 of them surrounded the girl and snuffed out the threat. I can't remember which Cork player had the attack, but Eleanor Ryan Doyle closed down about 30 yards in a flash. And
we're nearly having a second conversation. Are we? Bowles Peamount again? Are we about Savannah Kane and
Yeah,
Karen Bogan?
but that stuff is, well, no, not so much. I just
Yeah,
thought,
but I'm saying like when we're seeing the older guard who've sort of been in the league, gone like in Eleanor's position, gone away for a couple of years, sort of come back and still have that little bit of
yeah,
hunger to.
yeah, I think she has that hunger, and she's obviously Peamount through and through as well. So I think she wants to see that success, and she's beginning to maybe rise the standard. And of course, Dervla Burns come back into that team as well in recent weeks, probably a bit earlier than Ryan Doyle. But having those two players back after a bit of a break earlier, well, Ryan Doyle for a few years, Dervla Burns kind of takes the first half of every year out for academic reasons. But it's great to see them back in and making an impact, even if the commentator, that's a bugbear of mine, when the commentator gets the names wrong. Dervla Bernie last week, and it was Isabella.
We've seen so many call her Bernie. Now, come here. I was having a conversation with Peamount's media man Max Thompson and Daily Mount, and I'm just looking back at it on FAI Connect from this sort of games. Like Peamount are just the most yellow carded team in the league, and I'm looking back at stats of the last couple of games, and sometimes I think they're probably getting a bit of a
raw deal.
They're raw deal, I think, from some sort of from officials sometimes. But I think the turn at the corner with a couple of results will definitely help them, and I think I really do expect them to sort of go on a bit of a run now and probably pick up a couple of wins.
It's funny you say that, but they're not. Eva Mangan has the most yellow cards in the division. She has 6 yellow cards this year. 2 Peamount players are 2 of 7 that have 5. And then there's nobody on 4.
Anybody on 4? Anybody on 4 at the minute?
Yeah, there's a couple: Ava Brennan, Maddie Gibson, Emma Hansbury, Roisin McGovern, Natalie McNally, Ellen Malloy, and Chloe Maloney. And then a whole.
So there's some big players there who are 1 yellow card away from suspension.
Yeah, absolutely. If Maddie Gibson was to get a suspension going into that Shells game in a couple of weeks, it could be massive. So she might be looking to get a yellow card in a game coming up to get that suspension in and done and have a clean slate going into the end of the season. And that's not the worst idea in the world.
The problem is it's in her situation. It's like the next 2 games. Obviously, they've got Waterford, then they've got. I also find this funny as well. I mean, this seems to happen an awful lot, and it's happening this weekend, but in a slightly different reason. Like this weekend, when Wexford play Bows in the All Ireland Cup, they were supposed to play in the league this weekend. Shamrock Rovers and Athlone play literally the week before in the league, and then play in the cup. We're seeing that so many times where teams are playing each other. It's happened Shells so many times.
There's so few teams, and because no matter who gets that cup final, it's going to match either the week or 2 weeks before or after. It's 50-50 that it's going to happen or not in any single cup final situation.
Do we use this moment to talk about Shamrock Rovers and cup semi-finals?
Let's talk about that cup semi-final clash, because do you want to bring the listeners up to speed with what's happened with Leinster Rugby?
Yeah, sure. So literally on the 19th, let me get the exact date for you. I will have it in about 5 seconds because I have it here. On the 19th of August, Leinster Rugby tweeted to say that they are playing a game on September the 13th at 3 o'clock in Tallaght Stadium. This was before the FAI Cup draw had taken place. So it's now scheduled. They're supposed to play in Tallaght Stadium at 3 o'clock on the 13th of September, and at 7:35, Shamrock Rovers is supposed to host Athlone Town in the FAI Cup semi-finals in the same venue. Something that's not really doable. It's not really feasible. This sort of only really came to light. To me, it only came to light today when somebody said it to me, and then I sort of tweeted about it, and then a couple of people have picked up on it. And I have reached out to the FAI. I've reached out and asked the FAI for an update on in their sense. Is there a potential?
No one in the FAI is checking their emails today, man.
No, and I don't blame them. But we've reached out just to ask the question because I knew we were going to talk about it, and at least to say that we've asked the question. At this stage, there's been no reply, but it'll be interesting to see what happens there, because you would hope under the agreements that Shamrock Rovers have as the main tenant in Tallaght Stadium that the women will get first refusal of that facility. Now, because
can I stop you there? Can I stop you for a second? Right? Can I ask you a genuine question? Do you think a women's soccer match is going to take precedence over Leinster men's rugby?
Pre-season friendly? No. At this stage,
but it
It
won't.
should, but I have massive concerns over at this stage. And what that also is going to do is, if for some reason this game had to be moved, everything that Shamrock Rovers sort of come into the league, or Jason Carey sort of stood about at the start about changing the game, changing this sort of thing, it's only going to give ammunition to every other fan base, every other club to turn around and say, hold on a minute. So I hope that Shamrock Rovers I hope that there's a serious work going in the background here. You'd imagine there is. The other side of it from me is, what are TG Carr going to say? Does TG Carr have that slot? And initially when the draw was made, what was said to me is this TG Carr requested the 4:00 and the 7:35 on the Saturday. The other side of it as well is there's men's FAI Cup on that weekend as well. So you're looking at the Sunday. Is the Sunday really a viable option for TG Carr? There's probably county finals or county semi-finals on around the country in Gaelic football that they're probably showing. Is it a feasible option? Could Shamrock Rovers be forced to move venue? Could they be forced to concede home advantage? At this stage, nobody really knows what's going to happen. Leinster Rugby still have tickets on sale as of when I checked, when I said it to you this evening. They still have tickets on sale for the game. So it's not as if Leinster Rugby have paused their ticket sales because they're thinking something.
Yeah. Well, I suppose on their front, worst case scenario, they bring it back to Energy Park or to the Aviva. Do you know what I mean? But I could see them actually. Do you know what? I'm not going to preempt what Leinster Rugby are going to do, but I think it would be a shame for the women's game if the women's team gets moved, and I think that's what's going to happen. Unfortunately, it just money talks, and the bigger crowd and the bigger profile, unfortunately, this country wins the day most of the time. So I think that's going to be a interesting thing. But we'll watch the space. We might talk a bit more about that next week on the show, because I realize we are running out of time. We've loads to get through in terms of extra stuff that's off the field. Let's talk about the Academy report that came out today. And maybe we can have a kind of a round table talk, because there's obviously big talk out of the FAI in terms of voluntary redundancy package that's been offered to staff today. So you've got this, we need more money for investment in our facilities and our resources and our staff on the club levels, but we can't afford to pay our own staff that we have. There's a problem there. Where do we draw the line? Where's any politician that's looking at this, because that's where they're going with this, let's be honest. Any politician is not going, why would we give them more money? And that's been the problem that League of Ireland and the FAI has had over decades. This isn't a new thing. It's not a slight on anybody that's involved at the moment. This has been done to death. What's the point in some respects of this report? I agree with nearly everything in it. We need more contact hours. We need better facilities. We need more coaches. We need people who are dedicated to coaching full time. It's their only occupation. All of that's yes. But how are we going to get there?
So I have a couple of things on this, okay? This report was commissioned by the government. It wasn't commissioned by the FAI.
Okay.
And I know somebody who's actually done quite a bit of work on this sort of process. And I've had conversations with him about this over the process of sort of done. So the government, the audit was funded and supported by the Department of Culture, Communication and Sport. So this is the sort of thing where I fully expect to see them putting more money in. However, I don't just expect to see them write a check and be like, there you go, here's this money for you to the FAI. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of things like we seen when there was a lot of controversy around just before the World Cup on finances in the FAI, how there was money put in with BDO and it was sort of access made available and it wasn't given directly to the FAI. I wouldn't be surprised if the government have a lot of these things where Sport Ireland or someone else is a key stakeholder in terms of the funding and it's done correctly. I don't think the government
that can't happen, because I suppose I've had a lot of experience working with Sport Ireland or the Irish Sports Council as it was when I was attached to them.
The problem here, I think you're going to say that it also has a potential FIFA conflict of political interference, and that is a concern, and it's 100% a concern. But the problem is, and as much as I think there's some really, really good people in the FAI right now, there's also people who are there who probably have overstayed their welcome or probably need to move on, but that they're not just going to throw money at it if they think the money's not going to be used properly. And they're right.
We should just ask for a bike shed and divert the funds. It'll be all grand. The biggest one for me, the biggest one for me when I look at this is the weekly training provision. And we seem to be fairly even in terms of how many weeks we're active for. Ranges from about 38 to 45 or so, I think, on average, across all the academies, which is decent compared to our European counterparts. But when we go to how many actual sessions a week we're having, particularly when we get to the areas where we're most active, which is under 15 to under 20s or so. So the under 16 to under 21 range, we average 2.9 sessions a week, when the European average or the FIFA average from countries from 51 to 100. This isn't even the top of the pile. This is the middle of the FIFA pile.
But the funny thing is women are even
women are
even low. So if you actually look at the details, so when you break the detail down a little bit, supposing them just off a rough guide, the men are around men's underage is around 3.3 compared to 2.3 for the women, so it comes out about 2.5. But like if you look at other things, like some of the things that they're saying is like the benchmark women's playing games probably around 28 games a year, sort of exceeding, or so it's really strong and really good composure. But the thing is, playing games is great and it's great learning, but the contact time as well is as important. And like even when we look at sort of full-time coaches, that sort of thing, there's not many in women's football around the country, full-time coaches, academy coaches. Like we've differed even on the pathways and how we think the way things should go. I'm going to be interested in sort of review this report in detail and understand why they think the sort of change.
Yeah, go on.
I get why they're saying younger is better. You know, I get why they're saying that sort of younger is better. Why are they saying we don't have many teams? There's no League of Ireland team has teams of 4 under 12s for the women and very few after under 15s.
Yeah, the whole thing. We need investment. That's the core, and I agree with most of what's coming out of this. One of the things I'm looking at now, just not going through, is the staff levels in terms of the breakdown of full-time, part-time, and volunteers. And I'm looking particularly at the women's side of things because we are a women's football show. 0 full-time staff across the entire Women's League of Ireland academies kind of makes sense. We've barely any full-time staff in the senior ranks, so why would we have them in the academy? 0.8 is part-time staff, so that means that some of the teams are basically paying the coaches and some of the teams aren't. Most of the teams are probably paying a coach in each academy, which, given that they've got 2 teams, is not exactly huge response to that. But what really worries me is that we only have 7.8 volunteers across these academies as well. That's less than half of the top 1 to 20 countries in the world in terms of what they have across their academies. And that's worrying for me. When we were involved with Sligo back in, and I'm not going to go back to this again, but it's the relevant experience I have of it. We had a staff of 8, and we got criticized by the club. So we had 8 people attached to that under 17 team. We had a physio who was at every session and at every game. We had a strength and conditioning coach. We had a video analyst. We had 2 assistant coaches, a head coach, and we had a kind of an analyst in there as well. And then there was 1 or 2 others around that weren't officially part of the team, like myself, had been on the board or whatever. There was 7 or 8 on the committee. So we had about 15 or 16 people who were focusing on one team. And I think we did everything right. We set the bar fairly high in terms of how the girls are treated. They got extra gear. We got given out to by the club for giving the girls extra gear because the boys might want it. And so that all happened at the time. We just knew we wanted to raise the bar. Has that been kept? I don't know if the interest has been there or the I don't want to get too detailed, but I just don't think the same level that we set back then is applicable now. I don't think the under 17 girls would have a video analyst full time, for example. I don't know, but I would wager that they don't. And I think that's the same across the entire board. A lot of this stuff doesn't cost much money. People, as you can see, even there, it's 15% volunteers in these academies, or 15 volunteers per academy across the top countries in the world. Like, people want to be involved. They want a hobby. They want a pastime. It's not always about financial compensation. Sometimes it is, but it's not always. So there's a nice balance there to be found between having 1 or 2 or 3 people in each academy who it's their full-time job, part-time really good coaches or full-time coaches where possible, but then a lot of voluntary staff around that, or call it what you want, voluntary / expenses, whatever it is, like a small financial token. But we need to invest in these academies, and it's not accidental that Shamrock Rovers are making so much money from selling players at the moment, and even Bows to a lesser extent, it's happening there too. So we're seeing the teams that focused on their academies a few years ago now reaping the rewards, and people are like, oh, they're jealous. But the reality is Shamrock Rovers and Bows have put the effort in. There's others as well, to be fair. But the clubs who aren't reaping those rewards are the ones who just not discarded their academies, but just had no interest in investing in them.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Like even the talk of things like the sort of the director academies and stuff like that. We're seeing more and more clubs getting female director of footballs and stuff like that. I was talking to a strength and conditioning coach within one of the League of Ireland clubs. I saw them recently, and we were chatting about sort of the whole process of 17s, 19s, senior, and the implementation of strength and conditioning. And he was telling me like he's now implementing a plan across all the teams to sort of work as a conjoined approach, where previous years we would have seen clubs maybe sort of focus the strength and conditioning on because of resources on senior team only. Like he was telling me, like he's working in one of them football courses, sports courses, and he's saying like he's using his people who come in to do the courses to actually help now get experience by getting them into the clubs, get them actually involved, and using the pathways to give them an experience, to give them and that's where I think a lot of women's football can really, really grow. I do think the likes of the transition year course has been a benefit for women's football, getting more. But the problem is there's a big gap when it comes to sort of that underage structure compared to, like, if you were to do a study and say over the last couple of years, every player has played 17s, 19s over the last 5 years, how many have actually played senior football?
Well, it's funny. Again, I've done this I actually did this as I'm stupid when it comes to analytics, but I did this as a survey on that squad in Sligo a few years ago. And it's more than half, or have played inter-county level ladies Gaelic, for example, if you throw that in there as well. And there's a few that have done both. Roisin Malloy did both with Sligo and Athlone. Aoife Hearn did both with Sligo. There's a couple of girls with Mayo, Ava Kane. So there's, as I go through that squad of 20 that we had back in 2018, the average is probably on the high side. Galway, I think in rural Ireland, you'll find that it's probably higher than it is maybe in the capital. Capital tends to be a lot more fall off. Clubs are harder to break into maybe as well in terms of the squads that are there. There's a bit more turnover or churn of players when you come to the regional teams, and girls get more opportunities maybe in Cork, Limerick, Galway, Sligo than they might get in Shells, or maybe not Bows as an example, but definitely Shells or Peamount over the years. So it's one or two breakthrough, but not the vast majority.
I'd say Shell's probably the highest number of academy players with appearances across the entire league. Because the amount of Scouts players that you can even see played with Bows, DLR, even gone to Peamount, gone to a couple went to Shamrock. You know, you've seen them where they've gone around. I'd say Shell's probably the highest number of youngsters who.
I'm going to push that back at you, Aaron. I'm going to push that back at you and ask you, why is that? Why do people go to Shell's Academy? And there's an answer to this that's totally related to that report that came out today.
Because they've successful pathways.
Yeah, from
successful path.
Like Alex Kavanagh joined Shells at 8 or 9 because
I was actually chatting to somebody, and this is actually very. It's funny that you say this. I was chatting to a friend of mine whose niece was playing in. I think she was playing in the Gaina Cup or one of them sort. I think she's at that age or slightly younger, playing county football soccer team. Went to a League of Ireland club. The League of Ireland club sort of they do training sessions and all this sort of stuff, but they don't necessarily play games. You can still play with your normal club.
Yeah,
has now gone and signed for gone and played for Shelbourne now, and playing games regularly with Shelbourne with that sort of group of players. And I think that's where it's massive in the fact of if they get them young players in, if you get the right path, like Shells have a female academy coach. They've promoted from within when it came to even their management structure was their previous 17s coaching ticket. They've actually put a lot of effort into developing that young players. And like it doesn't even go back. As you say, it goes back to the Alex Cabinets. Like even the likes of a Jamie Finn. Granted, she had a short spell with Raheny United, but she was with Shelbourne coming through that, and then sort of into in there. Like there's so many of them that have come through, and you can see the Shell's imprint because it's been from that stepping stone. And I think Peamount for a while were able to do that. And we see with the likes of Jess Fitzgerald, Ellen Dolan, Freya Healy, them sort of players that they've been able to develop them. But the thing is, it's can you be consistent to where you develop a couple every year? And that's how clubs are going to be sustainable.
But they have been. You only have to look at the number of ex-Shells Academy players that are now in professional contracts in the UK. Izzy Atkinson springs to mind. Emily Whelan springs to mind. Jess Zhu. They all came through. Some elements of that. Some of them may have joined earlier than others. But they've all been through that kind of pathway. And it exists. And that's the key. It actually exists. Because if you go to any of these League of Ireland sides, even take Athlone Town as champions, they don't take any girls in until they're 15. So, and what kind of contact have these clubs got? And again, that's not a criticism of Athlone. It's every single club in the league, bar maybe 2 or 3. Peamount and Shelbourne are the only ones that spring to mind. I could be wrong. Apologies if I am to others. But they don't have that academy coming through and the loyalties. And the Cork are seeing the problem with this. And they haven't done it to rectify it over the last few years either. Wilton and Douglas Hall just take all the players at underage because they look after them and they provide football for them and they provide coaching to them. And Cork City arguably don't even invest in the women's first team. They're not going to invest in the women's underage teams below what they're obliged to do for the Women's National League. And again, not a criticism of Cork City. It could be hit at 90% of the clubs in the league.
Like that's the other side of that is that's how when you come to the likes of your treaties and your bows with the youngsters playing now, if either one of them win the under-19 cup, whichever one of them two win the under-19 cup, it's gonna be massive for their club because it's an underage trophy. Like we've seen with Athlone, we've seen the amount of players that are breaking through from Athlone into the first team who've done very well. But you're right, if you could get them players in there from a younger age, you'll find that their skill set will be than the youngsters that are coming through right now.
You look at the impact the youngsters, the girls who've been in from a young age, maybe Gainer Cup, fair enough, but into the LOI academies at 15, 16, 17, 18, they're now breaking into first teams, and we're mesmerized by them every week. We've named probably a dozen of them on this show alone. There's another 2 dozen we could throw out there as well from across all the leagues. All the international underage teams are made up of League of Ireland players now, which is phenomenal. But could you imagine if we'd got that generation of players 4 years earlier, brought them in at 10 or 11 into an academy system with better coaches, better facilities, and again, no disrespect to the teams, the junior clubs that are producing these players up to 13, 14, 15, but it's not the same. It's not, and anyone who's been involved in one of these environments understands the difference between high performance and recreational sport. And what's happening in junior clubs with the best will in the world, it's junior. The commitment levels from 2 or 3 players might be what you want, but there's going to be a girl who's missing because parents or family's going on holidays that week, and like parents don't care necessarily. Oh, it's just a football match, and so you're going to be struggling for consistency at training, consistency at football. They're playing other sports. They've got school commitments. That's normal and it's okay. So we need to be looking at a troll regular, not just a once off at 7, 8, 9, or 10 to bring them into an academy. You need to be pulling girls in as they impress at different points along the football pathways. But I think the move to football, a calendar year, is going to help in terms of reducing the bad conditions that girls are asked to play in and boys are asked to play in. And I think it's positive. I think a structured scouting network as well. The Gainer Cup, I don't see as serving any purpose anymore other than the adults involved getting their week away in Limerick. I just think it needs to be restructured. And the regional centres are done away with, which is a disappointment as well. I think the FAI, we're seeing things cut for money reasons, and I think there's a lot more needs to be cut in the FAI than is actually being cut at the moment, but I don't think it's ever going to happen, unfortunately. Sorry.
Like that's where we look at things like how important it is. Like Ireland being successful in the likes of the Bob Docherty Cup, where it's the skills under 15s, them making that transition into Ireland under 16s. making that transition then into 17s. Like Ireland have struggled at 17s over the last number of years. Struggled. And if you get more of these players in at a younger age, you're going to increase the standard across the board for everybody. And that means then it has a knock-on effect to international football, has a knock-on effect as you go up through the age brackets. And the thing about it is when people complain about Ireland managers going and looking abroad to find players and bring players, you can see the side of it as to why. Because the League of Ireland has an awful lot of growing. While we have some great players in the league still has an awful lot of growing to do. And these sort of things and these sort of reports, they open eyes to a lot of things and everything starts with your foundation. Your foundation is really good at a young age. You will see the rewards come through over the time, and it would help Ireland no end.
Let's talk about foundations. And the foundations of football in this country is, like it or lump it, the FAI. Today, a statement came out from the FAI. I'm not going to read it. It's the least positive thing that's come out of the FAI in probably 10 years, which is really saying something. They've offered voluntary redundancy pretty much to everybody in the company. It was done this morning, brought into a meeting at 9 a.m. They were told very little from what I believe. They were told they will get, the details of it are that they'll get the 2-week statutory redundancy plus 2 weeks on top of that for each year of service, which is normal, and it would be capped at €600 per week. So essentially, if you're with the FAI, say for 10 years, you would get a maximum payout of about €24,000. Now, in the modern world, that's not even 8 months rent to live in Dublin. I mean, 10 months rent to live in Dublin. And if you add in living expenses, it's about 3 or 4 months living expenses. It's not a lucrative redundancy package at all. But that goes to say that the wages that the FAI pay and all sports organizations pay are not lucrative. Nobody goes into work in sport for the money. That's not why you do it. But you do expect a bit of respect and a bit of positive treatment. And what happened today, it seems to be the bottom of the barrel for an organization that had already been pretty much drip dry of morale in recent years. Is it time to just rip it all up and go again? Or like, why is the football community not up in arms about all of this? Like, we seem to be happy to just let things go as they are. I don't understand.
Too many people on the likes of the General Assembly are just happy once they're servicing what they want for their club. They don't care about the overall general of what happened. Like, you have to remember, a lot of people on these sort of academies are outside of the League of Ireland structures, are outside of the big benefits of the FAI. So once their club is able to is going the way they want them to go, they're happy to just leave it be, ride it out. But the problem is that the morale in the FAI is probably been at an all-time low for quite a period. And like, you even look at the people who've been leaving over the last number of months and over the last year, it's just been like a revolving door. It's a case that people are getting out because they know it's time to get out. It's not good for the future of Irish football, especially, and the timing of today's report off the back of this, it sort of, I don't think the timing was great of the report off the back of this, because there's no doubt we're going to see the FAI invited into the financial committees and into Leinster House again and ask questions. But the problem is every time they get invited in, they get asked these questions. Whatever changes? Nothing has changed since the John Delaney era, in the sense of culture, work, that sort of thing. There's some unbelievable people at the FAI who do great work, but like, their work is in danger of being cast aside, ripped apart, because of an organisation that has never been able to really keep itself in order. And is it time to rip it up? Maybe it is. Maybe it's time to just say, you know what, let's start afresh. Let's start from the scratch. Like, you even see things of the League of Ireland department. Like, the League of Ireland department is one of the most successes of the FAI within the last number of years. But for me, the one thing you always notice is the FAI is so focused on senior women's teams, senior men's teams. They're the focus and they're the priority. Like, even you talked about staff.
Money, Aaron. Like, to be fair, and I agree with you from a holistic point of view. I detest the focus that goes on to 2 teams in the association.
What I was going to say to you there, right, is you talk about staff levels, you talk about things like that. There was a photograph taken of the Irish women's team after a game in, I think it was in the States, and there was nearly more staff members there than there was players.
Yeah.
Like, and that's when you're talking about a cost, talking about a financial thing. If there's more staff there than there is players, what is the cost there? Because there's no doubt the USA didn't pay for every single staff member to go over there. Likewise, when we looked at, even when Ireland went to the World Cup, the amount of staff they would have brought, the amount of things they would have brought. Granted, you need some of them, but the amount of them that is there, like, it's mind-boggling. Like, I'm gonna send you a picture if you have your phone. If you have your phone,
I'm fully aware. I've seen the huddles after games, and I don't recognize most of the faces. And they're still in staff gear rather than player gear. Like, it's a problem. It's one we probably got through that World Cup campaign under Vera, where the staff numbers just seem to grow exponentially, camp on camp, and it hasn't gone back down. And that boils down to me is that the cost of that is astronomical, because you're putting people up for like a week at a time every time there's a camp, and you might have 20 staff in as well.
But they're not staying in cheap. They're not staying in just cheap hotels either.
4 or 5 star hotels, and their individual rooms. And I don't have a problem. Got half the fun when I was involved with football, and I was never involved at that level much. But like, people had roommates. Do you know what I mean? Like, even here on other podcasts, you'll hear Roy Keane talking about sharing with Dennis Irwin or whatever in his Man United days. Like, at the top level, everyone had a roommate. It doesn't seem to be a thing anymore. Everyone has their own room.
But like, even for me then in Breifne, like, even, you see the amount of dignitaries from the FAI that are traveling over, and they're not traveling over with the team. They're traveling over themselves on separately because they're coming over later. And it's like, there's another expense. Whereas
some of them are probably paying the wrong way. Some of them, to be fair, there are definitely people out there involved in the FAI who aren't on the gravy train and who are paying their own way. But anyone
it's not in that. Like, if you see board members, you see president. But the thing about it is, a lot of these people need to be there. But like,
I'll tell you a story, and it's kind of linked to this. And a few years ago, I was invited to be part of an FAI committee. And the first, I went to a couple of meetings before I pulled out. But the first meeting I went to, the first 5 or 10 minutes was dedicated to the expenses form and how to fill it out. Right, there was 15 people in the room, rented a hotel room with food. 7 or 8 of them were FAI staff who, because of it was in the Northwest, but because of that, there was probably a day off work essentially for each of those members of staff to travel, some from Dublin, some from around the region. My best estimate, if you take a day's work, a day's salary for 7 or 8 people, all the travel expenses involved, because everybody got expenses, voluntary or staff would be getting expenses for that, or would be paid, their fuel would be paid by the FAI if they had a car. Some of them would have had FAI transport. Add in the room, add in the food and stuff that was barely touched. It was disgusting, to be honest. You're looking at, I reckon, somewhere between 1,200 to 1,500 euros for that one meeting of an expense to the FAI. And there was 8 of those regional committees, and they met 6 times a year. Now, even if you took half that as the average, because you mightn't be paying travel in Dublin or in some of the urban regions as much. If you took, say, 600 or 700 euros on the average by whatever 48 meetings, you're still looking at somewhere around 40 grand, 45,000 euros.
Yeah.
For that. Do you know how much they paid out in travel expenses to teams that year? They had the senior league and the 17s league. There was, I think, 9 teams in the senior league, and there was I think 14 in the or 12 maybe in the 17s league. Do you know how much they paid out in total?
Nothing.
No, it wasn't nothing, but it wasn't a whole pile more than that. It was a couple of hundred to each of the 17s teams and maybe 1,500 to each of the senior teams. So maybe somewhere in the region of about 16,000. So they spent at least, I would say, 2 to 3 times, if not more, on the committee meetings that produce very little. I was going to say something else there, but I'm not going to curse.
Like even from the international trip, like, I try to do it on a budget because it's coming out of my pocket. So I know, like, when I'm trying to do it on a budget, and I can see the cost of some of these trips, and I'm like, you have to think about a lot of these trips as well. Like, if they're traveling with the team, it's easy because they're on the flight. But if they're not traveling with the team, a lot of these aren't direct flights. They're plane to here, plane to some of them are, and it's like it all adds up. And when you're in an organization who who hasn't got the money or hasn't got the thing, you need to be making the decision: is this expense needed? Because like the sad thing for me is if I see someone losing their job and the expenses that are being paid out on other things, and it's sort of like, if the expenses were under control, could you have had 3 or 4 more staff members over the course of a year? Probably you could.
Oh, 100%. The expenses, I think you could probably save a staff member's salary in nearly every camp. And that's how much these camps are costing, particularly on the senior side. Definitely half a salary a camp. I've done this job. I spent 5 years organizing Irish teams going to the World University Games, trying to get 100 people to Thailand or 100 people to Serbia for a month, essentially. It's not easy and it's not cheap, but it can be done with a bit of work. It can be done. Yeah, you might not be flying on the peak times. You might be flying at early mornings, late nights. But you add an extra day in and you compensate. Do you know what I mean? There has to be compromise. And this thing, I'm all for looking after people, but within reason, within your limits of what you can afford. And the FAI is broke and they're spending hundreds of thousands every time the men's team get together, and probably.
Well, here's another question for you: how much money did the FAI lose out of playing in Páirc Uí Chaoimh because they only got 9,000 there for that game against Slovenia?
I don't know.
That's probably a game where they've lost money.
I don't mind that. I actually don't mind that expense, because I think that's actually doing what the game should be doing, is developing the game and giving those opportunities to girls to see. And if they make it back in the Aviva, or they made it in the Aviva, so it's swings and roundabouts on that one. I have no problem with the Páirc Uí Chaoimh one, because it's bringing an international game to Cork, and I'd love to see them go to Pearse Stadium in Galway, or to Castlebar and play it in a Gaelic ground if they have to. But I would love to see them do that more often. Get them out of Tala, no disrespect to Tala, but let the girls in Galway, or the girls in Athlone, or the girls in Athlone's probably a bad example. They don't have a pitch big enough, but you know what I mean? Like, we need to be seeing the game being moved around, particularly the women's game. Fair enough, leave the men in the Aviva, but the women's game, I think, the under 21s, I think we should see more of them going to places like Turner's Cross, the showgrounds. These grounds can take 4,000 to 5,000 people, fill them, and bring that into the local economy, and more importantly, that opportunity to see this standard of football. The biggest crowd I've seen in Longford in years was when we hosted the under 17 World European Championships. Maybe just, was it in COVID or just before COVID? I can't remember. But like, I got to witness Jeremy Doku, who we all know from Man City at the moment. He was the best player I've ever seen live, and it was so clear at 16 years of age that he was going to be a standout star. Unbelievable at the time. Anyway, it is ridiculously late. We're an hour and a half in. We never go an hour and a half in, so apologies if you've stayed with us this long. Thank you very much. But we probably haven't really resolved anything on that. We've both just kind of ranted, and that's okay.
But we can do a little bit more over the next couple of weeks as we get more information.
I think we're going to hear more come out of this over the next few weeks. We get a better idea of the numbers. I don't even think there's a target set within the FAI as to what they're losing in terms of the staff they want to get to move on. It's going to be interesting to see if the call comes. I think it might. I think some of the good people, unfortunately, will probably leave the FAI in the coming weeks, because if you've been there 5 or 10 years and you have a chance to stick 15, 20, 30 grand in your back pocket and move on to another organization, I think people will do that. The lack of jobs, though, is probably the biggest key in that industry in this country. Someone thinking of moving abroad, though, not the worst idea. Anyway, let's wrap it up for the week. Sorry for keeping you so late. We will try and be shorter again next week. Aaron, as ever, a pleasure. Where are you this weekend? We haven't even talked about the fixtures, but where are you this weekend?
I'm in Talga Park probably Saturday, and then I'm in FAI Cup Park on Sunday.
Of course, the All-Ireland Cup. We barely even mentioned it other than in passing. That game takes place this weekend. Massive game for both of those, Bows and Wexford, who will put their name on the cup and replace Galway as the sole winners of this competition in recent years. We'll be back next week. We'll chat to you then.